नहीं रुकेंगे नहीं रुकेंगे सबको स्वस्थ करें.
Welcome back. You're watching the NDTV-Dettol Banega Swasth India campaign. All day, a group of children in Ayodhya have been working to show us a beautiful depiction of some things we can all do to stay healthy. Let's go back to see if they are finished and what it's looking like. Over to you, Meenakshi.
हम वहीं खड़े हैं जहां सुबह थे, पर नज़ारा बदल चुका है, माहौल बदल चुका है. अमित जी के अंदाज में कह सकते हैं कि हम वहाँ खड़े हैं जहाँ से लाइन शुरू होती है, और दिखाएंगे आपको कि हमने कैसे उस सफ़ेद वॉल को रंगीन कर दिया है. पर उससे पहले हमारे साथ हैं नवदीप रनवा जी, जो कि डिविजनल कमिश्नर हैं अयोध्या रीजन के, और बहुत ज़्यादा पॉपुलर हैं अपनी मॉर्निंग औचक निरीक्षण के लिए. सर, जाते हैं और देखते हैं कि चाक चौबंदी कैसी है, सफाई कैसी है. सर, अयोध्या बदल रही है, नए नए लोग आ रहे हैं, टूरिज्म है और डेवलपमेंट हो रही है. ऐसे में इस नगरी की स्वच्छता और स्वास्थ्य का ध्यान के लिए क्या इनिशिएटिव लिए जा रहे हैं?
देखिए, हम लोग यहाँ जितने राजकीय उद्यान हैं उन सब की साफ़ सफाई कर रहे हैं. वहाँ जितने ओपन जिम्स लगे हैं उनको रिपेयर करके जहाँ नहीं लगे वहाँ नए लगा रहे हैं, और बहुत सुंदर और साफ़ रख रहे हैं इनके हमारे जितने सरकारी उद्यान हैं. इसके अलावा हमारी अयोध्या में सुबह सुबह हम लोग निकल के हमारे सफाई कर्मियों के साथ सफाई अभियान शुरू करते हैं और उनको मोटिवेट और इंस्पायर करते हैं कि उनका काम बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है. इसके साथ ही हमारे अयोध्यावासी जो सुबह मिलते हैं उनको भी हम रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं कि वो भी स्वच्छता में पूरा सहयोग करें, क्योंकि केवल सरकारी स्वास्थ्य कर्मी ही स्वच्छता नहीं रख सकते. एक बार तो साफ़ कर सकते हैं, लेकिन अगर अयोध्यावासी साथ देंगे तो जो धार्मिक नगरी और जो सांस्कृतिक महत्व है वो स्वच्छ भी हमारी अयोध्या होगी.
थैंक यू सर. तो सोसाइटी का साथ, जैसे कि हमने शुरू में भी कहा था कि हमेशा रहा है, एक नींव है सोसाइटी की. पर आइए अब देखते हैं कि पेंटिंग में क्या क्या किया है. अमित जी, आपने सवाल पूछा था कि क्या है पेंटिंग का, अब बन चुकी है और बच्चे ही आपके सवालों का जवाब देंगे. बताइए क्या ड्रॉ किया है.
नमस्ते सर. प्रस्तुत कलाकृति के माध्यम से हम इस देश को यह संदेश देना चाहते हैं, यदि आप एक स्वच्छ फल खाएंगे तो एक स्वस्थ जीवन पाएंगे.
आगे बढ़ते हैं और जैसे जैसे हम चलते जा रहे हैं आप देखते जाएंगे कि किस तरह हमारी पेंटिंग अब साइकिल है. क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
नमस्कार. ये चित्र हमें ये दर्शाता है कि यदि हमें एक स्वस्थ जीवन चाहिए तो हमें स्वच्छता की ओर एक कदम लेना होगा, जिससे हमारा जीवन का पहिया सदा चलता रहे.
तो जीवन का पहिया चलता रहेगा और इसी तरह ये BSI की मुहिम भी चलती रहेगी. बताएं आपने क्या.
नमस्ते सर. So the two paintings behind here represent the importance of two big aspects for living a healthy life. The first painting represents the importance of sanitation in our lives, and the second painting represents the importance of yoga for leading a good life.
एक बच्ची है जिन्होंने इस पेंटिंग से प्रेरणा पाकर एक कविता भी लिखी है. उनसे सुनते हैं कि क्या वो कहना चाह रही हैं.
NDTV-Dettol की शानदार मुहिम के संदर्भ में मैंने 4 पंक्तियां लिखी हैं जो इस प्रकार हैं. संपूर्ण धरा पे लहराना है भारत का परचम, हमारा स्वस्थ शरीर ही कर सकता है यह शुभ कार्य संपन्न. स्वस्थ शरीर होगा तब जब स्वच्छता का पालन करेंगे हम. श्री राम के आशीष से, अमित जी की प्रेरणा से पूर्ण करेंगे लक्ष्य संपूर्ण स्वास्थ्य का. लेते हैं यह प्रण हम. धन्यवाद.
तो अमित जी, आप देख ही रहे हैं कि 9 साल से बच्चे आपकी प्रेरणा पाकर किस तरह उत्साहित हैं. और अब जब हमारा एक बैंड है और ये पूरा ग्रुप है जिसने आज पूरी इस दीवार को पेंट किया है. वी हैव कंप्लीटेड 200 feet in actually 4 hours and I cheer for this team. Let's hear them out. तो इसी तरह कला से सर हम लोग जो चेंज ला पा रहे हैं मुजाटो की तरफ से लाते रहेंगे और इस मुहिम से जुड़े रहेंगे. थैंक यू NDTV, थैंक यू Dettol, थैंक यू अमित जी फॉर गिविंग अस दिस चांस सो दैट वी कैन शो एंड बी पार्ट ऑफ दिस बिग इवेंट.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आप सभी का. मेरी तरफ से सब बच्चों को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद दीजिएगा। आपने कहा था ये जिसने साइकिल बनाई थी कि वो जीवन का पहिया चलता रहे, मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि वो ज़ीरो एमिशन वाली मशीन है।
Correct.
True. Thank you so much, Payal. Moving on, India has the largest adolescent population in the world, 253 million adolescents in the age group 10 to 19 years. And these years are a time of sudden physical, mental, and emotional changes. In fact, the health status of an adolescent determines the health status in his or her adulthood, and many serious diseases in adulthood have their roots in adolescence. We are talking about adolescent health and gender equality in this hour, and joining us today are, let me introduce the panel. We have with us Navya Naveli Nanda, co-founder Ara Health, founder Project Naveli, Jyotsna Mohan Bhargav, author Stone Shamed and Depressed. We also have Vitika Yadav, country head Love Matters, Rashmika Mandana, actor, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we have Ravi Bhatnagar, Director, External Affairs and Partnerships, SOA, Reckitt. Thank you all so much for joining us. Rashmika, I would like to start with you first. When we really talk about India's health, 75 years from independence, and still when we talk about the amount of abortions that are happening, pregnancies, do you think really we've moved on, and what more should be done to spread awareness? How important is it to talk to our children?
I think what we often keep missing out is having that freedom of sort of emotion in the family itself, because a lot of kids, I don't think, are very comfortable talking to their parents about the things that they're going through. Example, me. It was a really long time since I got comfortable talking to my parents about what I was dealing through. So I think the comfort of speech in the house is where it begins, and then goes to school, where kids need to be more comfortable talking to their teachers about certain things. And of course, about violence, what happens in school, it's all very minute. Yeah. Violence, what happens in the family, it might be very minute, but when they grow older, when they get mature, I think it just becomes bigger, and before we know it, it's one of the crimes that they've created. So I think freedom of speech, freedom of conveying what they're feeling at home is the beginning of it all.
To be able to talk to, I think that's what you said.
Yeah,
and in fact, also telling them the right facts, what we were talking, Mr. Bachchan, what you said in the morning.
Yeah, I just feel that what she said is a very pertinent point. That a lot of the girls feel very hesitant to speak about it very frankly with members of their family. I don't know about the other girls, but I do believe that they pick a lot of this up from their friends in school and college.
Yes.
And then it remains with them for a lifetime. Whether it is they're getting the right kind of information or the right kind of advice is something that the ladies themselves will be able to tell.
Yeah.
But when they disclose this to a senior adult in the family, especially mothers, I think they get a better side of the education that needs to be told. And some kind of giving them a sense of dignity. That is very important. Many people feel that at this stage, there is a kind of an impurity that is being instilled in them. And I don't know whether it's right to say this or not, but many religious institutions prevent women from going to temples if they are having their periods. And I don't know what is the history behind this, and I do not know why they do this. To me, it is a sign of recreation. How can you stop that?
Exactly.
In fact,
Exactly.
Bachchan, sorry, Dr. Roy, were you saying something?
No, I'm saying exactly.
I was coming to that, the point which you came when we were talking about menstruation. In fact, that's something in our country, unfortunately, it's still a taboo. We don't talk about it openly. Navya, I wanted to ask you, because you work, we've traveled together in a couple of places where you've made these menstrual homes. Why do you think it's still important? Of course, I would like to point out, while it's a taboo, the access to menstrual products in our country have gone up quite a bit, especially because there has been awareness. But Navya, tell us, why do you think it's important that there should be more awareness on it? And it shouldn't be a taboo, it's a very natural process.
No, absolutely. And I think, like he mentioned, it's a sign of life. It's a sign of a moment in a woman's, as she grows older, is a point in her life where she's able to give birth. And I think that's not something that we should be ashamed of or shy away from. And I think menstruation, yes, has been a taboo for a long time, but there is progress. I'm sitting on stage today with my grandfather talking about periods, and that itself is a sign of progression. And the fact that we are sitting on a platform today with many people watching us and having an open conversation about menstruation itself shows that we have progressed, not just as women, but as a country. And I think it's great that not just the women, but the men have also joined in on this mission of making menstruation a destigmatized conversation. And I think more importantly at home, because change for me always begins at home, and I feel that women should feel comfortable and safe about their own bodies in their own homes before going out into society and talking about that. And I think I was fortunate enough to grow up in a home where I felt comfortable having these conversations.
That's really important.
Ritika, you know, we just spoke about taboo subjects and things we can and cannot discuss and what we feel comfortable with. So what are the main vulnerabilities that adolescents and youth face in India, considering the lack of access, you know, to information, to counseling, to other services? Because there seems to be, it happens in a few schools, but they're in the more sort of affluent, maybe the more open, sort of more liberal, you know, areas. But I'm talking across the board, because if we look at the incidences of teenage pregnancies, if we look at the growing instances of STDs in youth, if we look at all of these issues, even consent, you know, something like consent not being understood by boys and girls, where are we not, like, where is this huge gap? Where are we failing?
I think first and foremost, of course, the fact that we do not have comprehensive sexuality education and we do not want to think about it or perhaps have a strategy and approach to move towards that is really the big problem, because we do not want to acknowledge that it is important. I guess the bigger problem is that we eventually want to tackle teenage pregnancy, we want to tackle, you know, sort of the burden of contraception largely being in women, but we tend to talk about it at a much later stage with the population that we're talking about. And the fact is that we need to talk about this at a very fundamental and foundational level. If we are going to start talking about it when they're in schools, you know, really building that understanding around consent, around boundaries, that is when things are going to change. So I think as a society, I think policymakers, educators, parents, everybody needs to be a part of this process. Everybody needs to understand it's high time we need to start having these conversations. And I also very strongly feel that we always look for special moments to have these conversations. And that's really where the big problem is. The journey of unlearning is when we start to have these conversations every single day. You know, these can be your dining table conversations, wherever you are. Every little moment is an opportunity. A child would often come and ask you, oh, you said somebody's pregnant. What does pregnancy all about? What does that really mean? So agency, talking about consent, I think the fact that we are so late by the time we have these conversations really, you know, sort of, I think we lose a lot of things there.
Jyotsna, thanks very much for joining us. Your absolutely excellent book, which actually I reviewed, and it's had a much bigger impact than I could even imagine. Well done. Really a lot of work gone into that. But there's still a long way to go, and you've had an impact, but what do you think still needs to be done? What would you like to see? What steps would you like to be seen taken?
Doc has already mentioned, I think it begins with conversations. What I found when writing the books was that conversations are missing. Some of us are fortunate. I'm fortunate. Swati is fortunate. Navya is fortunate. You know, we brought up in homes where these conversations are normal. But even now, around my children's friends, these conversations are not normal. And these are children who are going to good schools, you know, good colleges. So imagine what you have to think about: the marginalized, the LGBT, the rural. These conversations need to firstly go mainstream. Secondly, I think the issue still remains about acceptance. If we don't accept that there's a problem, how are we going to, you know, go out and look for a solution? I think, to me, that is critical, to accept that there's an issue and then work around it. Because if we don't accept, how are resources going to reach the women? How are resources going to reach the adolescents? How are they going to know where to go? At the moment, the conversations then are restricted to their peers. You know, they look at what the peers are telling them. They will go to these shady clinics, which is why I think it's brilliant, the Supreme Court's landmark judgment on abortion for single women as well, to equal rights for abortion. But what I found when I was writing the book was that girls and children didn't know where to go. I mean, they don't know who to speak with, and so then they listen to their children, to their friends who would send them to shady, clinics where it compromises their health. And we've seen a lot of, spotlight on these clinics which have, where liposuction surgeries and all of these have gone wrong, but nobody's really focused on these abortion clinics and what they are doing to our children. So I think a lot of work still needs to be done in bringing this conversation, firstly, to the mainstream. And, what has also complicated, Doc, is the fact that COVID has shrunk the spaces. The safeguards were not as much as we would have liked in the beginning, but what has happened is also that those safe spaces for the girls, the mothers, the sisters have got compromised during COVID. Families where jobs have gone, finances have gone, people have lost members. It has been very easy to take it out on the women, on the girls, on the wives, or, where we have COVID orphans, it is very easy for families to just get them married off. But of course, domestic abuse and sexual abuse is the biggest secret in our country. And data is not always reflecting of what is on the ground. So I think we need to also work on the ground to get more data, more accurate data. But that can only happen when conversations open up and when things go mainstream.
Right.
One of the things that, Ravi, when we look at, if you take birth control that's available, the burden is a lot on the women because, for a woman to go find an oral contraceptive, it's not easy to get it over the counter. You need to go to a doctor. So there's a problem because if you're a young girl, then your issues of privacy with the doctor, what if the doctor tells the family, where are you going to do all this? So then if you leave the responsibility of birth control so that the boys have to use a condom, then the problem is the entire power of that relationship is in the hands of the boy, right? So this is a massive problem, and this is because in school levels and stuff, we just don't talk about this. Sex education isn't a thing that's there, and it's one of the most critical things that we need to have in our schools to make it normal for everyone to understand that it's bodily functions, people change, it's hormones, it's completely natural, but we just don't have this at all.
Bring it into the mainstream.
Exactly. And you're working in the Northeast with the birds and bees, so just, exactly.
Yeah, thank you. It's very interesting, 3 years back, how we started the program in 6 states in the Northeast. It was very difficult, a lot of barriers were there to start the program, but there's a lot of support from the government now, and Vitika really helped us when we were formulating the curriculum. And what we have seen is basically, there are very basic questions, but teachers actually coming forward with. Girls are liking girls in the school, they were very shy, now they can actually ask. We have also seen out of 6, states, 4 states have actually demonstrated fewer number of teen pregnancies. I can say this program is the only program which focuses on this in the Northeast, and if that is happening and if that is true, then it's one of the biggest achievement of this program over the years. Second thing is, out of 6 states, 2 states have witnessed significant decrease in the new STI infections. That is, one is Manipur and second is Nagaland. And when we see the data and statistics, I'm sure there's a long way to go, but there's some change which is happening. And I'm very positive, other states will also take this curriculum. We have translated recently the curriculum in Hindi, so that in the bigger states like UP, in Chhattisgarh, in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan, we can take this curriculum. The characters which are there, like Sia, Max, and others, those characters needs renaming. Based on the cultural context of those states, but the content remains the same. And we are also seeing there are more than 3,000 Tier A authors in the Northeast actually writing about these subjects now. There was a time when we started, the whole word cloud universe was just talking about the Naga fights and the terrorism and all, which has changed to the birds and the bees talk, adolescent health, STIs, and discussions have started happening on that.
So the conversation has started, which is really good. You've seen the impact on ground. We are going to be talking about mental well-being as well, especially when it comes to adolescents, as well as gender, which begins at home. Rashmika, but if your movie Goodbye releases, first of all, tell us how was the experience to work with Mr. Bachchan? And secondly, it's a family drama where there is a loss of a loved one. We've all been through challenging times during the COVID-19 pandemic specifically. How does one manage mental well-being and the emotional quotient? How should we keep it high?
First of all, I think I'm extremely grateful that I got to work with Sir because, of course, it's huge because this is my first Hindi film. And that being, I already got to work with Bachchan sir, which is amazing. I'm really grateful. Coming to how do I deal with...
the experience has been mutual.
Oh, thank you. I think how to deal with grief or keep it anything which is so heavy as losing someone so close to you I just believe in being able to just convey what's in your heart truly, because what happens is we sort of like tend to bottle up all the feelings, and without you knowing it, one day it's going to explode. And one day it might explode in terms of, okay, getting very aggressive in terms of, communication, or can even get to a point where it's suicidal act, So it can get either ways, but I just feel like when you have people who actually care for you, when you have people who actually, love you, it's always good to sort of like communicate with them regardless of what it is, and just getting out what's in your heart out there, honestly. Because otherwise, how else are you going to get over the loss, right? I think that's very important. And always writing. Like maintain a diary, just somehow get it out of your heart is what I believe. Talk out.
Just moving a little bit towards gender. Navya, according to the Global Gender Gap Report 2022, India ranks 135 out of 146 countries. It's gone down. Gender inequality is still a major barrier when we talk about health and development in India. We always see the women eat food later, so that's why, hence they are anemic or they are malnourished. As a gender equality activist also, which is the work you've been doing for a while, do you see the narrowing of the gender divide? Do you see that the youngsters, the girls of today are speaking up? Is that time changing?
Absolutely. I think a lot of younger girls feel more confident about themselves and the role that they play in society. I've personally, through my interactions over the last 2 years, have met a lot of young girls who are more confident about their bodies, their minds, they're very ambitious, and I think that they're definitely motivated to make a difference and bridge the gap. But this is something I've always said, is that when it comes to empowering women and building the gap to gender equality, it's not just the responsibility of a woman, but equally the responsibility of men as equal parts of society to help bridge that gap. And as much as we'd love to see younger girls, I'd love to see younger boys as well take the initiative to bridge that gap.
Actually, I'm amazed at the work you're doing. I mean, when you joined us last time, I was just, it's really, and you're sticking with it over years. How important is what other people are saying is just to share it with somebody, preferably somebody close to you, just get it off your chest.
Absolutely. I think mental health being a conversation that we're having a lot more often now and on much larger platforms is extremely important, because I feel that, we learn a lot from the elders, from people on TV, and I think that, them especially being public figures and talking about it so openly will encourage
so
a lot of...
share.
Yes,
That's the kind of message that you would give.
Absolutely.
Make
just
it
get
mainstream,
it out,
as Jyotsna said.
To share, to not just share on platforms like this, but at home with your families, with your teachers, with your friends.
Yeah, very important.
We were talking about this whole issue of impurity and how in the villages the stigma still exists. And Navya, maybe you'd like to tell them about the kind of homes that you've been building.
So we worked on a project last year called Period Positive Homes, and it was, I think Amitabh had an opportunity to visit as well. It was based in a village in Guttmacher, Maharashtra. And our on-ground partners, Mukul Madhav Foundation, have been working there for a long time, and they brought to our attention that there is a custom that's practiced there where they banish women outside the village during their menstrual cycle every month for 5 to 6 days. And these women are actually forced to stay in open fields with no roof over their head, no toilets, no sanitation, and definitely no access to menstrual hygiene products. So with our partners, we went in and built 6 period positive homes, which is the name that we've given it, so that when these women are, sent out of their villages, they're able to stay in these homes, and that they are also able to access menstrual products. Obviously, going in and trying to change a mindset takes a lot of time.
That'll
but
be a long-term
the
one.
next step is to really go in and sensitize them towards why a practice like this can be so harmful.
Yes.
Not just for women, but even for the next generation of younger girls who grow up seeing their mothers being sent out of their homes.
And just the whole thing of them being, in a safe area, a safe zone, I think that was the biggest thing. At least when I went, girls were actually studying in that home. So they were very happy to be in a closed environment, a safe environment.
I had the opportunity during one of the shows that I do where one of these stigmas was expressed in a rather ugly manner. They said, we send them out because the blood that they drop invites wild animals.
What?
And therefore we are afraid, and therefore they're sent off and we don't take responsibility. I mean, it's outrageous, absolutely outrageous.
I think the media needs to focus on this and get involved in change.
Absolutely. If I could share an instance during an interaction with a 12-year-old girl once, she mentioned that when she got her first period, she thought her blood would be blue because on sanitary pad ads, for the longest time, we saw blue liquid being poured instead of red.
Right.
So that kind of miscommunication can happen very easily when, big companies or even media platforms don't communicate with transparency.
Yeah.
That's important.
I think you're working on a most crucial area. It's just
Thank you so much.
I think all the youngsters we have today, Vitika, all Rashmika, all of them, Navya, to talk about something like this on a platform and something so critical and important is very basic, like we say, but it's very, very important. And now some really special guests this evening. You don't want to miss this segment because these guests will melt your heart. Let's go to Punjab now where Mr. Newton Sidhu is with our colleague Arun Singh. Arun, over to you.
Well, Ambika, I'm in a beautiful company right now. I'm coming to you from Dera Basi, that's under Mohali district. And meet Stella. She's very photogenic. But she's not just a pretty face because she's very capable as well. She's a therapy dog and she offers help when someone is having an anxiety attack, or she can also detect depression as well. And someone who takes full responsibility of the training is Mr. Newton Sidhu, who runs this canine training and breeding institute. A very warm welcome, Mr. Sidhu.
Hi, good
I must
evening.
say, Stella is a beautiful dog.
Thank you.
And can you tell us how did you identify her skills and how she's been able to help patients suffering through several mental health problems?
See, this all started when it was during the pandemic time. We have been training dogs for paramilitary forces, state police forces. But during pandemic, we came out with an idea because I had seen that the dogs, they have been helping the people who are into depression or who have anxiety attacks or the fits. So already I had this toy poodle with me. So I started training her, started taking her out with a lot of old couples who were staying in my neighborhood. And there, then she started interacting with them and they started coming out of their anxiety things, and even with the kids, old couples also.
Any special incident that you can share that you had probably with your family or one of the
I will
patients?
just tell you, there's a old lady who's living alone, and she's a good artist there.
Mm-hmm.
She went into depression, and she happens to be my neighbor. So one day my mom told me that she's into this. I started taking her there, and you won't believe she's started painting again. And Stella is the one, and she did an interview also back with your channel almost 2 years back. So she is
She's media friendly too.
Yeah, she's media friendly. Yeah, that's what. So
But dogs can, your dogs can also detect diabetes, cancer. How does that happen? How do you train them for that?
See, if we come to diabetes, first it's a long drawn process which takes up to 8 months to 9 months time where we start doing all these things. But the way we start is we start taking the saliva of the patients initially, then the sweat. After that, because dogs can identify somewhere around 18,000 different scents, they can differentiate between them. So we start imprinting the dogs on that.
Okay.
So once we start imprinting on that, they start identifying it. Suppose your sugar level is going down, you will start sweating. Once the sweat comes, they identify it. And
How do they communicate? Oh.
They will bark. Otherwise, this dog doesn't bark. They only bark when they identify there's some problem with you, there's some issue with you. Because if you have seen a movie back there, the Munna Bhai, they say the chemical locha in your brain. So they identify that chemical locha, what happens. So they bark. That is only part.
Right, and don't get confused by this cute picture that we're presenting. I mean, at the background, you can see them, all those feisty dogs as well. Mr. Sidhu has been providing these dogs and also training these dogs for forces across the nation.
Yeah, we have been doing that right from Sikkim to Manipur to J&K till Kerala. We have been training dogs on different trades, right from detection of explosives, narcotics. We have been doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Stella is definitely very happy for this appearance on Banega Swasth India. Punjabi samajh lendi sir?
बिल्कुल आंदी है पंजाबी आंदी. You can tell her कि चलो चलिए सैर करन. So she becomes excited and she's ready to go for a walk. That's what it is. Now, moment I've said चलो चलिए, Stella, चलिए सैर करन. She will start looking at me that I'm going to...
Stella the sair da time ho gaya, so we'll not keep her holding here. But that's all that we had from Dera Basti. But once again, congratulations on the effort that you've been showing and the way dogs have actually come forward in achieving this target that we have of Sampoorn Swasthya. With that, we're slipping into a short break, but a lot more coming on the other side. Keep watching NDTV.